I think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed a
You
Q.
found it?
All right, welcome to the Patriot Hour and the Patriot Tech. Doing a simultaneous stream to the tech and recording for the Patriot Hour, so this will go up right after. I will cut this off at one point, and then we'll go a little longer on the Patriot Tech. I want to make sure we got Elle in the room. How's it going? Amy, Danielle got the mods. No Fuss, David. Let's see here. All right, so we got some new Q. All right, give me a minute here. Get this pulled up. All right. So how's everybody doing this evening? We got some new Q drops. I'm going to go over here. Get them pulled up. Got a desktop capture. Okay, let me get on this here. Okay, we got quite a few because there's a question and answering. It's pretty straightforward. Should be at 200. Went overboard. There it is. All right. Get you back over here so you don't get dizzy. Scrolling down. All right, so I think the last one was 2604. Yes, 2604. We had the so Huber is a head fake. If so, brilliant. False. Huber will bring severe pain to DC. All right, so that wasn't any kind of head fake. That was legit. All right, so jumped in this without being totally prepared, but we'll be all right. Okay, so Huber, we're going to jump past that and go to 2605, question and answer. Came at 642. 2606, how do you know the future? Control. It's just control. They got control of a situation. 2606, okay? We've known that. Military operation. 2607, is Seth alive? We presume Seth rich? No. Put all those theories to rest. 643. All right, some of the stuff is just eddies, folks. If your whole mission was to know if Seth was alive, and I mean, it's not bad to think that. But there you go. 2608. What were in the envelopes at the funeral, right? Falling out of Hillary's little program. 6:43 p.m. Our promise to counter. Q. All right, so what? A little promise in there to counter. Promise to get back, right? To get back in touch with them. All right, so that was 2608. Promise to counter. 2609. Is there a plan in place for after Trump? Yes. All right, we've known that all along. Wouldn't there be a plan after this situation to make sure nothing goes bad again? folks. Give me a second here. Okay. Trying to do a million things at once. 2610. This came at 6:45 p.m. We got an anonymous poster here again. Will voter fraud be exposed before January? No. 2019. Push voter ID based on verifiable intel. Fraud. 2020 plus safeguarded. All right. 2610. So it's pretty self-explanatory. These are question and answers. So 2611, 647. Is JFK Jr. alive? No. Again, that just shattered a lot of people. I don't know what I could say. Again, I know that was a whole side thing kind of going on. Interesting, be very cool. Even I agree. I watched a few things. I wasn't prone to not knowing what's going on. Interesting. Again, those with me aboard the USS George Washington, we looked for 8 to 12, maybe 16 hours. A mission of our ship was to search for the wreckage. I mean, we were out in that area at the time that his plane went down. We got the reports of it. Again, the Navy, that's the kind of stuff we do. So the call came, we're like an ocean 911. So if you happen to be out there, the closest ship's going to get, and there's a couple other ships involved. It wasn't just the USS George Washington, it was a few others. And you had the Coast Guard, and you had all kinds of, so 2612, so again, 2611, interesting, not that they're putting not alive, just the whole thing was interesting. I agree with those who really were into that. All right, 2612. What about Snowden? Negotiating for return. Traitor. Mission to harm NSA. All right, negotiating for return. Get him back here. He is a traitor. His mission was to harm the NSA. All right, we went over this months and months ago. Worked for the CIA. You guys all saw the awesome movie Oliver Stone or whatever put out. Pretty much can say it's all true. That's how it possibly went down, other than he was hired by the CIA to infiltrate the NSA to get a job there and expose them, to create a lot of noise over at the NSA. Why? Because there's intelligence wars between intelligence communities. The CIA wanted to create a lot of smoke over at the NSA so they can run, have clear and free run with not a lot of attention over there, while they're over, a lot of noise, media attention is over at the NSA. That's an intelligence internal issues that they have with each other, right? They don't all get along. They all want control of the utmost, all highest levels of security. And the NSA being made up of military, closest to the military, they were having issues. All right, it was patriots versus bad deep state. So that's clear, all right? So what came out, what was said is all true. It's all the capabilities the NSA had. They gave away grave secrets. Not that I'm for that. We know things now. I mean, his story sounds good, and it actually could be. It's just that it was fake. He wasn't really a patriot. He wasn't really doing it because the people needed to know. It was done because the CIA planted him to do that exact job. So that's the difference of that story. POTUS tweet. At FLOTUS, Melania will be interviewed by Sean Hannity tonight at Fox News at 9 p.m. I got POTUS tweets turned on. Is that what I got? Yeah. Hold on here, folks. I guess I could do that, but all right, still got a lot more to go here. So again, this is where we were. FLOTUS, 0 Delta Q POTUS. So 0650. That was it. 350. All right. Not intended, separated by 2. Q. All right, so we missed a few that I skipped over here. Snowden negotiating. Q is Julian Assange stateside. No. 2613. That came at 650. 2614. Yes. Added servers with an S. Bandwidth improved performance. 2614. 2615. Q, should we be prepping for some kind of shutdown? No. Reports of power grid attacks, 6 months of prepping should be disregarded. While attacks do occur, we are safeguarded by a black eye. Q. All right, so there you go. We're just starting to talk. I just started hearing tidbits all around the internet. Other just articles. I still think it's fine to be prepped for a few months. I'm not going to go throwing away water or anything that I have. But they're saying no 6 months worth, no power outages. And then we get into internet as well up here. 2616, 655. Again, we got the, I just went over that one. 0 Delta, POTUS not intended, separated by 2. So a couple of a Q and a Trump tweet lined up by 0 Delta. 2617, is the internet infrastructure being safeguarded to prevent a shutdown? NSA ability to overreach hosts possible. So, all right, internet should be good. Possibly. 2618, 659. Will FLOTUS confirm anything on Hannity tonight? Only her beauty and love of country. Q. 2619. Q, do we have the gold? Yes. Gold shall destroy the Fed. That's huge. All right. Now, what does that mean? Are we going to use it to pay off, or are we not going to pay off? Are we going to just get off the debt standard? For every dollar we borrow, we owe. I mean, what we heard early on, and I remember this, I don't know if it was during the last questions, will the Fed go away? It would be highly revised. So that was the last time. Now this time is, do we have the gold? And we put yes, and it shall destroy the Fed. Does that mean highly revised, or does that mean destroy them and they're done? I don't know. You guys are seeing what I'm seeing. You let me know down below if you do. Maybe you didn't see that because I was talking, but here we go. Do we have the gold? Yes. Gold shall destroy the Fed. 2620. This came at 708. Q is talking about Google's 10Q filing with the SEC. My assumption would be for their 3-31-19 or 6-30-19 10Q filing. Assumption correct. 10K YE. 2019 1+2 should be closely evaluated. The first 2 filings. Help will be provided. Senate to investigate 2019. So we got a Senate to investigate it all. 2621. Will voter fraud in California ever be brought to light? Yes. Watch California. It was deliberate. 2622. So that's flat out. Yes. Let's watch California. Let's listen. Just to shut the flat earthers up, Q. Is the earth flat? No. That's a huge one. 2622 came at 712. Hey, I know a lot of people, again, is it completely flat? No. Didn't say, is it a globe? No. Or yes. Who knows? Oh, I'm not saying who knows, but I've just never been to space. All I've got is what I've read, seen, numbers. I mean, there's tons of things. But again, some things are not, that are just, that I can't physically prove and all that. I don't get caught up in too much right now. That might be another mission down the road when these other things are over that I care more about, I guess. Is keeping the course. All right, 2623, anonymous. Is Gitmo going to be used for U.S. citizens? The Cabal. In parentheses 3, detention centers being prepped. Monitor funding. 2624, anonymous. Q, please tell us who or what the wizards and warlocks are. Guardians of intelligence. Q. 2625, end, stress test failed. Q. All right, so stress tests, we normally know on anything. You're stress testing equipment. Just everything can be stress tested until something finally breaks and you're trying to see what the limit is of a stress test. And that can be done on all kinds of things. All right, so again, those are the Q posts. Want to get them read. I'm going to stop this video now for the Patriot Hour. Again, we'll go a little bit longer here on the Patriot Tech with the live feed. So again, thanks for joining in, and we'll see you back here real soon on the next Patriot Hour update video.
You know what letter that is, Grover?
I think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed a Q.
Hey, Froggy.
All right. All right. Do we got everything cleared up in the room? We got yes. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Top stories. All right, so what does everyone think about this Cohen? What is everyone's thought on Cohen? So we I was thinking about this today. This guy typically, you know, whenever I've gone to get a lawyer, I've gone to get a lawyer to seek legal advice. You know, I'm not a legal expert. So you go to a lawyer and you ask him things, or like, I think I want to do this. And he's like, well, you know, I know the law, and that, no, you don't do that. I would advise against that. That's how they normally, I thought they'd work. Even if you went to him and you said, I want you to go do this for me, he would probably say, no, that's against the law. I know the law, and that's not a way to do that. I just don't, typically lawyers advise you. I don't know too much when you hire a lawyer and you advise them all day long and they listen to you. They're the ones that went to school and are the law experts and took the bar. So I found it to be kind of funny that this whole pitch that, you know, Trump's, now I get it. There are slimy lawyers, or the movies portray them. We've seen them, you know, Better Call Saul. But still, that guy is real witty, and he's telling everyone else what to do all the time. I've never really seen a lawyer sit there and just, but you know what? Trump's got that over people. And even if that's the case, you know, if I was to go to get a lawyer my own self tomorrow, and I'm like, I want you to go do this, this, and this, all these illegal things that I don't want to do myself. What are the chances of me getting this lawyer to go do all those things for me? As simply as, go break a few of these people's legs that owe me money. That's what I want you to do. I'm hiring you to do that. Is he just going to go do that for me? Or is he going to tell me, I advise no, that I'm not going to do it? You shouldn't do it. Let's sue this guy. We can take him this way. I mean, he could probably come up with all kinds of other angles. So it doesn't make sense. That's what we're saying. Cohen tried to save himself, right? This is the mainstream pitch, though, that every news article is that this guy, it just blows my mind. Tell me otherwise. That lawyers don't normally advise their clients, not the other way around. And so if Trump was able to talk this guy into doing something illegal, and the guy did it, a lawyer at that, that's his own stupidity, and to prove anything in the court of law as far as where the payment went and what it was for, all Trump has to say is he did it to protect his family, not the presidency. And then everyone has to argue, no, you did it for presidency, and we think you did. It just comes down to what Trump says versus, now again, his lawyer, what's his lawyer standing over here saying, no, that's not why he did it. He did it for his presidency. And Trump can be like, well, you're my lawyer. You're supposed to be part of my team. I'm telling you that it was for this. And that lawyer's gonna be like, no, be opposite of his client. They try to say he was loyal to Trump, but yet he recorded him secretly and then gave it to the feds. And Trump didn't even know he got recorded. That's not loyalty, to record somebody secretly and turn stuff over to the feds. That's the opposite. So that goes out the window. It's just, all of it's really illogical. If you stop and think about it a little bit, it's real illogical. So the guy's a proven liar. His word's no good. I don't think there's anything to worry about on that level with Trump. So, all right. So how's everyone doing out in the room? What's going on? Any other breaking news you guys have heard about? Tomorrow we got the Clinton Foundation. We got Tom Fenton going to be there from Judicial Watch. I feel real good about that. I think this is a first of many little meetings. Not sure where Hoover's at. I thought he was supposed to testify last week on the 5th. So now, like 1 week ago, a week and a day by tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But that is believe it'll be on at 2 o'clock. So that's something that maybe would be perfect to live stream here on the Patriot Tech. So let's look for a live stream tomorrow for sure. So let's see here. Trump moves to deport Vietnam War refugees. Embassy spokesperson. How National Enquirer surprise deal could imperial Trump. Some real good ones here. Royal family's photographer picks his favorite photos. All right, let's go to actual news. Giuliani says Trump's legal team wants Mueller to get it over with. She was supposed to be deported, leaving 3 kids, but she hid in a church. House sends farm bill to Trump without food stamp work requirements. Let's see here. Trump, Judge Napolitano, whatever. We know Trump committed a felony. If you're watching Fox News when Michael Cohen's sentence came down, you would be pretty sure this was bad news for Donald Trump's former fixer. Less clear was what it meant for President himself. For clarity on that, you would have to wait a couple of hours until anchor Shepard Smith invited the reliable Frank Judge Andrew Napolitano, can never say his name, on his afternoon news hour to explain just how bad the day news was for Trump. We learned that the federal prosecutors here in New York City, not Bob Mueller and his team in Washington, D.C., career prosecutors here in D.C., have evidence that President of the United States committed a felony by ordering and paying Michael Cohen to break the law. So how do you order somebody? The judicial analyst said, how do we know that? They told that to a federal judge. Under the rules, they can tell that to a federal judge unless they actually have that hardcore evidence, he continued. Under the rules, they can't tell that to a federal judge unless they intend to do something with that evidence. Now, those same federal prosecutors have entered into an agreement with AMI, the National Enquirer's parent company, which ties a bow on all of this. Now, Andrew said, connects to the dots between the payments to the two women who claim they had intimate relationships with the president. So we know that she has to pay all this money. I bet that's a real, I don't know, I haven't heard anything from the Avenatti on that. But, well, that's the whole thing. She, whether she paid or, she took the money to be quiet. And what happened? She didn't be quiet. Why take the money if you're not going to be quiet? At the point of somebody's like, here's some hush money, don't say nothing. No, I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to make a lot more money by talking. Don't take the money. And then nobody's broken the law. All right? This is a consensual, perhaps. I mean, again, I don't take it back, but it's like, man, you go back to the 90s, you had a president doing this stuff actively in the Oval Office on government time in a government facility. You can't do that. And nobody cared then. But this one took place 10 years ago, and people are all worried about it. Well, it's because of the payment that took place. Well, Clinton did it while in office, lied about it, ended up getting going through the impeachment process, got impeached, never got impeached, or got impeachment, or however you say it, and nobody cared. And then he ended up paying all these women, Paula Jones, $850,000 way back then. That's like millions. So there you go, folks. Nobody cared then. He was doing it then, right then, as people were finding out and being mad about it, if they were, and money got paid. This happened a decade ago, if that, at that. And again, I don't know. I don't know if Trump's ever totally agreed or admitted. Pretty sure he did, I don't condone it, but I think people can change, and this is a long time ago. I don't know. So, all right. Anything else? I'm going to look at a few comments here, see what's going on. Pull this up. Chris in the room, Aussie Dog, Brown Eyes Rule. All right. I'm going to play a little video here for a few. I might be back in. I'll let you guys go for a little longer. I'm going to get in the chat room as well. Get this video up and going. Feel free to hang out. Like I said, I could possibly be back. Just let me get some other things going here. Let me find a good video. Something I've been going through my old folders on my hard drive, so hold up. Just looking here. Story about.
I've been covering the prison at Guantanamo Bay throughout the Obama years.
President Obama rushing to empty Guantanamo Bay just days before leaving office.
I returned just before Obama left office, as he and Donald Trump fought over the future of this place and the men detained here.
He's allowing people to get out that are terrible people.
Make no mistake, we will close Guantanamo Prison.
Gitmo, we're keeping that open, and we're going to load it up with bad dudes.
Gitmo still houses notorious terrorists like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the self-proclaimed mastermind of the 9/11 attacks.
Tell us where we are.
We're standing right now in front of Camp 6, and that's where the majority of the general population detainees are housed. Just don't get any guard faces in the back.
This time, I was here to report on Obama's final push to empty out the prison. In his last year, he released 52 detainees. Nearly half of them had been held without charges and were once considered too dangerous to let go. But military and intelligence officials finally deemed the men safe to set free. I wanted to know more about these decisions and what happened to the detainees once they got out.
This gate would literally be the last gate that they walk through before they get on their transportation to leave Guantanamo Bay.
Detainees just released to the United Arab Emirates.
The detainees have been scattered around the globe, taken in under secret deals.
Bodyguard for Osama bin Laden is now free after being held for 14 years.
None of the officials involved in these deals will discuss the details, but most of the detainees were sent to Arab countries.
The Obama administration quietly took 10 terror suspects from the prison at Guantanamo Bay and transferred them to the Middle Eastern country of Oman.
Some were sent to rehab centers in places like Oman.
The U.S. released 4 Yemeni men with some relatives waiting.
Others were reunited with their families in Saudi Arabia. Every transfer was reviewed and approved by the Department of Defense.
Hey, how are you?
Chuck Hagel personally signed off on more than 40 detainees during his years as Secretary of Defense.
In terms of the facts about former detainees, what should Americans make of their danger, their status?
There's always the danger, of course, because this is an imperfect process. But every one of those detainees I signed off on, it was based on the best, absolute best information, intelligence, and knowledge and certification that we could come up with. And one of the final questions that I had to certify was, in your opinion, have you done everything to minimize the possibility that a detainee would ever again do any harm to an American or any of our allies?
What did that mean in practice, in figuring that out?
I always took the approach that I wanted to be damn sure. And I wanted assurance from my security people that, in fact, they had seen physically where these people were going to be, who was going to monitor them, how often the monitoring. And on the other side, we say to the host countries that are going to accept them, we want these people to get back into society where they are productive citizens. That means education. That means rehabilitation. Of course, I mean, that's clearly in our interest. It's in the interest of the detainee.
Few of the ex-detainees have been heard from since their release. Their lawyers say that the ones sent to Arab countries seem to be adjusting, but I've heard others are having problems. A handful of men who were taken to non-Arab countries with little support. One of them, among the last to leave Gitmo, is willing to talk. Mansour al-Daifi, prisoner number 441 from Yemen. He was never charged, but for most of his 14 years at Gitmo, he was considered too dangerous to release. In 2015, a review board convened by President Obama determined he was no longer a threat. Yemeni detainees are barred from going home because of political instability there. So last summer, he and another detainee were transferred to Serbia. Mansour's pro bono lawyer in New York says he's unhappy in Serbia and wants to live in an Arab country.
Was he given any choice in where he was going to go?
No, not really. It was pretty much presented as Guantanamo or Serbia.
And what kind of rehabilitation has been provided for him in Serbia so far?
From Serbia, as far as I can tell, nothing. And nothing from the U.S. government. If we are going to take someone after holding them for 14 or 15 years and not let them go home, and not let them go to the country they want to go to, not let them go to a place where they feel they themselves will be able to build a life, but force them to another place, then I think we have a responsibility to help them adjust to that and make it work.
She says Mansour has gone on a hunger strike protesting his situation.
You have represented other Guantanamo detainees. In terms of Mansour's resettlement and reintegrating, is Mansour a unique case?
I do not think he's the only one who's had a difficult time. I think a lot of the other men who have been sent to, say, Eastern Europe, which is a very unfamiliar culture for them and unfamiliar languages, have had a very hard time adjusting. People who were sent to countries like Oman, which are very familiar to them, which are a familiar language, which does have a formal rehabilitation program to help them make that adjustment. Those people seem to be doing pretty well. And if we want to make sure that these people are never going to be a threat to the U.S., the best way to do that is to make sure that they have a life that they're happy with. That's not going to happen if you put them someplace where they are totally isolated and they don't see any prospect for a future.
As I set off to meet Mansour in Belgrade, Serbia, here's what I knew about him. He'd spent time at an al-Qaeda training camp in Afghanistan before being captured when he was in his early 20s. Much of his case file remains classified, but leaked documents show that at first, the US government claimed he was an al-Qaeda commander. His final review, however, came to a very different conclusion. At worst, it says he was a low-level fighter, possibly not even a member of al-Qaeda at all. Mansour was known to exaggerate and change his story. In 2006, he claimed he was a committed jihadi and praised the 9/11 attacks. But by 2015, he claimed he wanted a college education and was a fan of Taylor Swift. Still, Serbia seemed a surprising place to send a man once labeled a Muslim terrorist.
Every Muslim house burned, every Muslim killed or run off.
In the 1990s, Serbian troops slaughtered tens of thousands of Muslim men, women, and children.
The Serbs call it ethnic cleansing and brag about their efficiency.
NATO bombed Belgrade to stop years of carnage.
When
the detainees arrived here last July, it made headlines. Some questioned if they were dangerous. The Serbian Prime Minister insisted they weren't. The other detainee has refused to talk at all, and Mansour has kept a low profile, avoiding publicity while his lawyer has been telling officials about his unhappiness and his hunger strike. Now he wants to go public in hopes of being moved. The Serbian government agreed to keep Mansour for 2 years. He can't leave the country. They give him a small stipend and an apartment. That's where we found him.
Hey.
Mansour.
Okay, where are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel I'm lost, honestly, because I'm nowhere. I end up in Guantanamo 20 years old. I am still 20, mentally I'm 20 years old. The way I'm thinking, the way I'm talking, but physically I am 36. Because when you stay in jail, I mean, your mind and your intellectual, everything stays at the same. And the worst thing in Guantanamo, like what I have experienced, I didn't know why I was there. And for how long are they going to punish me? Until when? What's my crime? I wish if I had done something wrong, then yeah, I deserve that. But nothing. It's just keep people indefinite for no reason. It's like, it's not right at all.
Mansour's detention may have been prolonged by what he told a review board in 2006. After nearly 5 years at Gitmo, he declared himself an enemy of the United States.
I regret that now. I was mad, I was young, I was crazy, of course. Imagine you are in a place where you're like all totally disconnected to the world outside, to your family, to lawyers, to anyone. They were extracting the worst of us to see the world. This is bad people.
Mansour learned English at Gitmo, mostly from the guards, he says, and he wanted to study at an English language university here, but was rejected. He says it's because of his background, but the university told me he failed his entrance exam. He rarely leaves the house, especially now that he's on a hunger strike.
My way is like slowing down very, very fast. I started on 154 pound. Now I am on 136, like almost 18 pound. I have lost in 23 days.
For most of the detainees at Gitmo, refusing to eat was a common form of protest. Mansour says he did it many times, and at one point was force-fed over the course of 2 years. Now he's using the tactic to pressure the U.S. to get him out of Serbia.
What I am asking to be sent to other country which I can start my life. That's what I want. To start a family, start to finish my education, and to live in like a normal person. That's what I want in my life. Not more. Simple dream.
What did you think when you heard Serbia?
I was afraid, scared, afraid, to be honest with you, because the historical conflict between Serbian and Muslims in the 90s, this is like, God, I'm going to that country. You threw me in a country which I knew nothing about, no language. I mean, it's total chaos. The Serbian government told me that after 2 years, you are leaving. And who is going to accept ex-Guantanamo detainee after what had been said about us?
Every night, Mansour works on a memoir about his time at Guantanamo. He shared a draft with me. When we left him, we planned to come back the next morning and continue our interview. Within a few minutes, our taxi was pulled over.
Police pull us over. About, I think, 3 or 4 officers. They said random check.
We were with our local producer, Valerie Hopkins.
We're talking now. He wants to know, what do you guys do?
We're reporters.
Novinari. Hoćemo li imati više ovakvih susreta? Hvala, prijatno.
Has that ever happened to you before?
Od 95. evo prvi put me zaustavila. Nikad. Zaustavila me ova saobraćajna policija. Isto kontrola, papiri, 3-4 puta. Ovo su, razlikujte vi njih. Ovo su interventni. Samo ima nešto tako, budim nešto sumnjivo. Rutinski to, lako.
The next morning, before heading to Mansour's, he sent a text to frontline producer, James Jacoby.
He says, look, I have a problem, and he said, I don't think I can talk to you today. Government was here. That is what I can say now. For now, I don't want to run into any problem, please. It's different now. No, please don't come. There will be a problem for me.
Mansour went silent, and so began an unexpected journey. We went to his apartment and called him repeatedly.
Customer you have dialed is unavailable at the moment.
We spoke to his lawyer in New York, but she didn't know where he was either. In his texts, Mansour said the government had come, but he didn't say who or why. All we knew was that he had a Serbian government minder, but we didn't know where to find him. So we sought help from a local investigative journalist who's been pursuing the government for information about Mansour.
This is a letter to a government in August, September also, November. So basically I am addressing to any possible authorities that are maybe in charge for this issue. And the government didn't even reply to my constant calls or mails.
What have you been able to find out about the transfers?
We found out that government didn't call any experts for resocialization and trauma healing of those people. We found out that they didn't contact Islamic communities in Serbia and notify them. And for sure, their help is needed in their resocialization. So basically, the only person who has everything on this case is the Prime Minister, who is not very keen of journalists.
I found out the Prime Minister, Alexander Vučić, was having a press conference. When I arrived, I was referred to his Interior Minister, who's in charge of domestic security.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Likewise. Do you think we could talk to you for a few minutes?
What are the issues that you want?
We're doing stories about the Guantanamo detainees that have ended up in other countries.
Give me a minute to think about it.
Okay.
I want to rethink whether I should say anything because there are technical issues that are sensitive.
I wanted to find out what he knew about Mansour's whereabouts.
We've been interviewing one of the former detainees, and he suddenly went quiet on us. Is there any way that we could find out through you, or is...
Well, they are now private citizens as anyone else, and they have right to talk or not to talk with anyone, so we cannot force them to do that or influence them to do that.
He's fallen out of contact with everybody. I mean, we're actually concerned about what's going on with him.
Well, I have no information that any one of them complained. We have a regular communication with them, and I think that they're very happy with the ongoing situation. And I would say that we are doing a very good job. We are trying to accommodate U.S. in a way of de-radicalizing these kind of individuals while closing Guantanamo.
For 2 days, we looked all over Belgrade for Mansour, and the U.S. Embassy couldn't offer much help.
Is the State Department responsible for these guys' well-being here?
You know, I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, the best answer is I don't know who has primary responsibility.
While waiting on word from Mansour one night, I went into downtown Belgrade, where more than 1,000 refugees from predominantly Muslim countries had set up a makeshift camp. The Serbian government has been trying to provide relief, but it's hard to keep up.
You're from Afghanistan?
Yeah, I'm from Afghanistan.
How long have you been here now?
More than 2 months.
What's it like living here?
There behind the bus station, it's really cold there. It's not blanket, not food, it's not water, no shower, nothing. New people come here, many people, lot of children, families, and single men. It's not easy. When I was in Afghanistan, people call us, hey, you are not good Muslim. They tried to kill me. When we come to the Europe, say you are terrorists. For no reason why we terrorists. We did nothing bad here. And we just run from terrorists. What we have to do, we really don't know. It's really hard, yeah.
That night, we finally heard from Mansour. He was at the one place we didn't expect, our hotel. He told us that the morning we were supposed to continue our interview, several Serbian men barged into his apartment and told him to stop talking to us.
They were serious, very serious. And I tried to push the door, they pushed the door, and one of them pushed me, I pushed them back. And I couldn't resist because I'm on hunger strike. They took me to the ground. I really felt humiliated. I hit my head on the wall here. They went, I think they were more than 3. They checked the apartment, they took my phone. And they told me basically just, if you want to stay here, you have to keep your mouth shut. You are lying, you are playing games. If you can stay in this place, we're going to take you someplace where you don't like. That's it.
Considering his past, it wasn't surprising the Serbians would keep tabs on him. And it was hard to tell how badly he was being treated. We pointed out that at Gitmo, he was known to exaggerate.
I swear by my God, I didn't need to make it up.
I understand.
If you judge me by this, sorry, I have to go. In Guantanamo, when they put you under pressure, under very bad circumstances, like 72 hours under very cold air condition, and you were tied to the ground, and someone came and poured cold water, whatever, tell him what he wants. Just, okay, get out of my skin. Why I should even lie about Serbia? I'm living here. Why should I create problems for myself with Serbian government?
It was late, and Mansour wanted to talk to his lawyer in New York about staying overnight at the hotel.
Honestly, last night I couldn't sleep. I have nightmares all night. Even today, like, I put a lot of stuff behind the door. And I think I'm going to keep doing this all the time. Okay, I will stay here tonight.
Let me talk to her about that.
Okay, James wants to talk to you.
Beth, let me take your credit card number, unless you want to call the hotel directly and book the room for Mansour.
I have nowhere to go to. Like, I have thought about it, to hide among the refugees, but it's not a good idea.
What name do you want to use, Mansour, for tonight?
So I use 441, tell her.
He wants to use 441.
The next day, we went to see if any of Mansour's neighbors had heard a disturbance. I was with Valerie, our local producer. No one had heard a thing. But one neighbor said he thought the secret police were renting Mansour's apartment. Back inside, Mansour said he was worried the Serbs would return.
I'm very afraid of these people. I'm afraid if they see you guys coming back, they look at it as a challenge.
Do you think, Mansour, that there was a misunderstanding about the terms of your release, that this is more of the way that things are?
I think
you have certain restrictions that are placed upon you that
they
were
haven't,
not...
When I was in Guantanamo, they haven't told me nothing about Serbia. They told me you'll be good there. So, you know what? I will try to forget Guantanamo, start education, learning English, studying, blah, blah, blah. It's bull. I try to be reasonable. I try to be nice. I'm trying to be quiet. Because if I get angry, I'm crazy. You know what's been crazy? Guantanamo teach us how to be crazy. I'm not making threats here, but this is how they push me to the corner. I'm trying to get my message to the Serbian and US embassy about US government about my problems here. But who cares? I mean, we just a piece of there, just die. What matters?
Later that day, we called the Interior Minister's office for comment about Mansour's situation.
Hi, Nemanja.
I reached his assistant.
We've been interviewing one of the former detainees here, and he's made some allegations regarding how things are in Serbia and his treatment. It doesn't scan with what we've heard in the interview and what we heard at the press conference on Sunday. So it was some things we really wanted to give the minister a chance to respond to.
Okay. What exactly they said about the street?
He's had some interactions, I guess, with some people from the government that apparently didn't go pleasantly. Okay. Okay. Nemanja, thanks very much.
We kept trying, but the government never would agree to an interview or respond to questions about Mansour and his allegations. The next day, our last in Serbia, I reread Mansour's memoir. The first line says, "If you have a problem in the camps and you want your problem to be solved, you must cause another problem or many problems."
The idea of the book, to let the reader live the life of the detainees.
During our time here, Mansour would say very little about his past. But before leaving, I pressed him again about it, and what he'd written about how Gitmo changed him.
I have in my head, I think, the first line of your book, which I won't get it precisely word for word. In the camps, if you have a problem and you want to solve it,
if you have a problem, you have to create other problems. You have to protest. You have to behave crazy. You have to kick the doors. Why people behave like that? They're not crazy. They're not crazy. This is the way how people behave. This is the way how actually the place make these people behave. I mean, we were like animals in cages, literally. Just animals who can behave like humans. That way they were treated. I mean, I was wondering always what they want from us.
How did you first get picked up by the Americans?
Okay, we didn't want to go there first. I was sold like you than anyone else.
You were sold?
Sold by Afghans to CIA. And from there, we got stuck here. I didn't want to mention Afghanistan.
You don't want to talk about...
While he wouldn't say more, according to his case file, Mansour was turned over to the U.S. by an Afghan warlord who was reported to be on the CIA payroll.
As I told you,
why don't you want to talk about that?
Okay, let us say wrong time, wrong place. I need to write it and put it my past in my separate book and separate story. You will see it one day, I promise you.
You write about Guantanamo had the difficulty being in a place where you don't trust anybody and no one trusts you. And you talk about the situation here in Serbia where there are people who, you know, say that you're a liar or like say that you might be making things up.
I mean, first of all, the governments here, or every government, they get a picture from the United States government that the stereotype, those people are liars, they pretend they are psychologically ill, blah, blah, blah. And I was shocked and surprised. And everyone repeat the same thing. And I'm afraid that you get affected with the disease here, liar, liar, liar. I didn't want to talk to you more to appear a liar here. Finish.
We went back to the U.S., leaving Mansour much as we had found him, bitter, isolated, determined to carry on with his hunger strike. Mansour's lawyer said she'd made no headway getting anyone at the State Department to reconsider his placement. So on the 40th day of Mansour's hunger strike, I went to see the person who had struck the deal to send him to Serbia, Ambassador Lee Wolosky, the special envoy for Guantanamo closure under President Obama.
Hello.
Lee Wolosky.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for
Wolosky was pressed for time. There were 20 detainees he was still trying to find countries for in the remaining weeks of the Obama administration. I asked him about Mansour's troubles in Serbia and his hunger strike.
We spent some time with a former detainee who has been resettled in Serbia. He was sent there last July. He seems like he is in a very desperate situation, and he's gotten to the point that he's gone on a hunger strike to protest that.
Well, I'm not aware that he's on a hunger strike. This is the first I've heard that he's on a hunger strike.
His lawyer said that they'd informed the U.S. government about the hunger strike.
Well, hunger strikes are not the right way to proceed in addressing grievances. The right way to do things there is to try to make the resettlement work. We can't force people to make good life choices. We can only encourage them to do it and to create an environment where that's possible. I think we've done that here, and I think the Serbian government has also done it.
Is there any additional responsibility from the U.S. government to the detainees after they've been released and resettled?
We don't make apologies for having detained people lawfully. However, we also try to create an environment where individuals can move forward with their lives. The Serbian government has created an environment where if he decides to learn the language and take advantage of the opportunities that are being offered to him, we are still confident that it can be a successful resettlement.
But on the State Department's own website, it talks about xenophobic violence being a problem in Serbia.
We've seen no indication in this case that that is a factor at all. None of the resettlements that we do are easy. They require work on the part of the individual that's been transferred and put in a completely alien environment. I'm not minimizing that. What I am saying, though, is that sometimes life isn't perfect, and you have to, make a decision about where you find yourself in life. I do have to be in a meeting to make sure that we're able to get more people out of Guantanamo.
Weeks later, I'd heard that Mansour started eating again when his mother in Yemen threatened to start her own hunger strike if he didn't stop his. Then, when I was home on a Saturday afternoon, he called.
This empty.
He said he discovered hidden cameras in his apartment and started ripping them out.
Was one in the corner over there. Do you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, hold it up a little high.
It was here.
I used my iPad to record our video call.
The second one is here. The third one is there. Do you see it?
Yeah.
This is enough for me. Really, it's enough. Being watched on camera on my part in the place where I live.
I imagine probably, whoever has the cameras is going to probably come by at some point.
I mean, so...
A few minutes later, a group of men came in. Mansour turned the camera on them and kept talking to me.
The police come here, and the government and the Secret Service, they come here, and as you, there's a mosque here, and there is more guns, like 8 of them, inside, outside.
So what is going to happen right now?
I don't know.
Okay.
Can you leave my laptops, please? Who give you an order to take my laptop? I don't think this will end well. What's wrong with you? You tell me what's wrong with me. Oh, come on.
At that point, more men came in.
So, can you tell me why I'm being watched in my apartment? Give me one reason. Am I a criminal?
I don't know. Are you a criminal?
No, I'm asking.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You have two choices.
Yes.
We take your phone now, and you are going in the hospital if you make any kind of the problems. You know the situation. Just listen to me. I'm speaking now. You don't speaking now. And
no, I'm not giving you my phone. And if you kill me. No, I'm not. Don't talk to me like this, please.
You know who you are here.
No, I don't care. You take me to your country. It's not my fault.
You have the choice.
I don't know.
And to speak.
No. Speak with me like a man. Speak with me. I'm calm down. I have done nothing wrong. I opened the door for you. I cooperate with you. Now you want to raise your voice against me. What do you have done? Tell me my problem. I'm not slave. I'm not a slave.
You're not the slave.
If you want to kill me, I don't care. I have 15 years in Guantanamo. I'm trying to be against my will. Now you write numbers against me. Don't scare me. Look, I would. Look, if I was a bad guy, I'm not stupid. I'm very smart. I'm very dangerous. But I respect Serbian government. I respect Serbian people. I have promised I will never do anything in Serbia.
And this is the procedure.
But listen to me. You come to treat me now.
Mansour's video cut out, but the audio kept going as the men explained why they were there.
We, as a state matter, we have to see if you have any other intentions except going back to a normal life. How should I know you are not like a threat?
Look, I have done nothing wrong in my life. I have nothing to be afraid of.
Well, the only thing that I care is that nothing happens.
Nothing happened and nothing will happen. I want to make my life. I want to start my life. I asked to come to an Arabic country.
You know that you don't probably have opportunity to do it. I see that the Trump administration now, it is not the same like before 1 month. I don't think that you actually had the choice.
Mansour told me they took his phone and laptop, and when he got them back, he says all of his data had been wiped clean. I called Serbian officials again for comment, but they wouldn't respond. I returned to Guantanamo just before President Trump took office. There are still 41 detainees being held. 5 of them are accused of planning the 9/11 terror attacks. Their trial is expected to take place here in the coming years. Around the base, there are signs of a long future ahead.
What's going on here in terms of the construction?
Currently here on the Alpha Block will be exam room for the Detainee Medical Center.
How far away is this from being finished?
Sometime in 2017.
The commander of the detention center says they're prepared.
There's some construction going on here. Is that an indication that this facility will be around for a while?
We're preparing for whatever the possibility may be. Going forward with that, it provides us a capacity and ability to provide better medical care to the detainee population. Helps us out also if there's an aging population, if we're here 5, 10, 15 years down the road as well, because we have to look for all possibilities for that.
If the new commander-in-chief, who said that he wants to keep the facility open and start sending new detainees here, how would you be able to adjust?
We have multiple plans in place. The first thing we'd probably do would be looking at not intermingling new detainees coming in, so we'd have to figure out the best way to do that based upon the number of detainees we'd get.
Outside, as I took another tour of the camp, something unusual happened. A detainee yelled out to me from the rec yard.
Go home. I leave, go home. You leave, go home? Where's home?
Communication between detainees and journalists is usually forbidden. They made us stop filming. But I was able to continue talking to him off camera for several minutes. He said he was detainee number 242, that he'd had 4 reviews but is being held indefinitely without charges. He said he's worried he'll be here forever. Later, I texted Mansour about the exchange.
I texted him that a detainee tried to talk with me. It's prisoner number 242. Mansour says, "This is my best friend." He said, "I think he is hunger strike. His name is Khaled, Yemeni. Hasn't been clear yet." Mansour said they want him to admit he was wrong. They are crazy. But he says, "Sorry, can't talk about this issue anymore. It brings only pain, and I haven't figured out what to do."
Today, there are 26 detainees, like the one who called out to me, being held here indefinitely without charges. And there are 5 men who had been cleared for release like Mansour, but didn't get out of Guantanamo before Donald Trump took office.
Coming up next, in a special collaboration with Retro Report, Arun Rath continues the reporting how a U.S. naval base became a controversial prison.
These people had not even been charged with a crime. A whole bunch of them just started grabbing the barbed wire so hard that blood was coming out of their hands.
From Haitian refugees in the 1990s to the post-9/11 detainees, the little-known history of Gitmo. Forever Prison starts right now.
Over the years I've been reporting on Guantanamo, I've seen the prison camp evolve. Once crammed full of suspected terrorists in orange jumpsuits, parts of the camp are now empty.
Just right here by the side of the road, this is where the detainees were kept in cages, essentially.
Gitmo is a symbol of the post-9/11 war on terror. But on my trips here, I began to hear a rarely told history of how it was first used to hold people outside the reach of U.S. law. It began a decade before 9/11, in the wake of a bloody coup in September of 1991, just across the water in nearby Haiti.
military coup is underway.
When the Haitian military overthrew elected President Jean-Bertrand Aristide.
Reports that soldiers have killed up to 150 people this week.
I was 14. My dad was in hiding, so every time they come knocking on the door looking for my dad, it was like, we don't know where he's at. I've seen people being burned alive and people being beheaded just for your political belief.
Some Army and police units are working as marauders.
My dad could have died at any given day, so we had to flee.
Marie and her father were among the more than 70,000 Haitians who took to the sea in the aftermath of the coup,
It is a refugee flood.
hoping to get political asylum in the U.S.
For many, leaving by boat was their only escape from political.
The boat would be leaking water sometimes, so we had a bucket.
Officials worry that hundreds of Haitians may have died in the rough seas.
We ran out of food, we ran out of water, people was sick. We were in a predicament. You couldn't go back.
Coast Guard is now stopping Haitian sailboats around the clock.
U.S. officials were inundated, intercepting hundreds of
The
boats.
State Department says the Haitians don't meet standard criteria for asylum,
After a quick review, they rejected most of the Haitians' asylum claims
describing them as economic, not political refugees.
and sent them back to Haiti.
The Coast Guard was picking people up and sending them back to Haiti without asylum processing, basically. So without giving people a chance to establish that they were fleeing political persecution.
The Haitian exodus has tied American refugee policy into knots.
But the refugees kept
U.S.
coming.
official called it a national security crisis.
So they were brought to a place nearby where normal U.S. asylum rules would not apply.
Nearly 1,200 Haitians are being detained at the U.S. naval base in Cuba.
American soldiers quickly built a holding camp at the naval base on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
It was massive, a massive camp, and it was fenced with razor wire, and you have the tower with the guards, and then just during the day, you just roam the yards. We didn't have no rights because technically we're not in the U.S., so it felt like you were in prison. I mean, that's what it was to us. It was being in a prison.
Soon, more than 12,000 people would be held here while their asylum claims were being processed, but without access to lawyers like they would have had if they'd made it to the U.S.
This is essentially Guantanamo Episode 1. We had foreign nationals held at Guantanamo precisely because the government believed or took the position that there were no legal constraints.
That issue caught the attention of a group of law students who were watching the story unfold.
I was in my last year at Yale Law School, where the students had been working on a variety of human rights litigation projects, and one of them was addressing what was happening with Haitian refugees. And the question was whether anything more could be done.
What was happening on Guantanamo Bay was wrong, and we felt like we needed to do something, which was to file a lawsuit.
The law students brought their concerns to their professor, Harold Coe.
The students came to me and they said, we'd like you to sue the U.S. government. The case started as a request for lawyers. And what happened with the Haitians were on Guantanamo, but they didn't have legal representation and they could be returned potentially to their death. So how can it be that you can be asked questions, have no right to consult a lawyer, and be returned to your death?
The government argued that the Haitians weren't entitled to lawyers because Guantanamo was beyond the jurisdiction of U.S. law.
The position of the government really was twofold. Number one, these detainees don't even have the right to walk into court to challenge their detention. The government's second position was, even if they can walk into court and challenge their detention, there is nothing we're doing illegal here.
Bob Begleiter represented the government. At the time, he says he believed the Haitians at Gitmo were receiving due process.
Due process for them meant that their asylum applications were being considered in an impartial way. That was due process. The government would say they got it, and ultimately, I think they all did.
In the spring of 1992, the two sides met in federal court for a pre-trial hearing. The judge ruled that the team from Yale could go to Guantanamo.
They brought me to the outskirts of the camp, and there were all these Haitian, including many children, surrounded by barbed wire. And they saw me get out of the car, and a whole bunch of them came up to the barbed wire and just started grabbing the barbed wire so hard that blood was coming out of their hands. And they started shouting, "Harold! Harold!" And I realized I'm their lawyer. I've got to get them out.
As the case dragged on, the government rejected most of the refugees' asylum requests and sent them back to Haiti. The few whose claims were seen as credible were allowed to go to the U.S. to apply for asylum. But some of those expecting to go found out they were being held back.
Everybody have a T number. I think mine is T1246. When your number is called, they put you on the chopper and to bring you to the state. Every day, they come with a list. They call out numbers. Your number never called until all the camps will close. Well, that's when we find out all the remaining people were HIV positive. And unfortunately, my dad was one of those.
They have been cleared to enter the U.S., but are stuck here because of a U.S. ban on HIV-infected immigrants.
Because of that policy, more than 200 HIV-positive refugees and their families were told they could be stuck at Gitmo indefinitely, for 10 or 20 years, or even until a cure for AIDS was found.
It's a death trap. They're being held there even though they have legitimate asylum claims, but because they're sick. And what we tried to do is emphasize how crazy it was to do this. You know, that our government would be holding people, all of a particular race and national origin, who are all sick in a particular way, instead of treating them like the refugees they were.
These Haitian refugees have reached a way station on what so far has been a journey to nowhere.
The government insisted the refugees were not being mistreated, but another year would go by for the Haitians at Guantanamo.
People were getting aggressive because of the unknown. You know, they would throw rocks at the MPs. They would put you what I would call solitary confinements. People were having hunger strikes. It was us against them.
In court, the government's attorneys were painting a different picture.
I was told that it wasn't perfect, but it was decent. That there was good sanitation, they provided adequate sustenance and shelter.
Then the team from Yale discovered new evidence.
We got a series of videotapes, and one of them showed this amazing scene where the U.S. military came into the camp and suppressed an uprising among the Haitians by physically mauling them, dragging them around. Remember, these are not criminals, these are refugees.
They have those white type of handcuff where they would tighten them really tight. A lot of people sometimes would be on the floor with their hands and feet handcuffed and took away.
And suddenly it became clear that the benign picture that was being painted was just false. The judge was watching this with, stunned.
Oh, I thought it was horrible, These people had not even been charged with a crime, but they were treated worse than criminals.
Judge Sterling Johnson Jr. presided over the trial.
How can you take a human being, take him into custody, tell a court that I'm going to do whatever I want to do with you, and to the court there's nothing you can do about it because it didn't happen in the territorial confines of the United States. It's in Cuba. Our Constitution says that if you are in custody by American authorities, you have rights.
Judge Johnson ruled that the Haitians should be released from Gitmo and that the laws of the United States did apply there. Within days, all of the remaining Haitians left for the U.S.
All this time, we thought we were alone. We were not alone. We had people who wanted us here. We had people who was fighting for us.
We won, and the Haitians came into New York under the court order. My co-counsel, Michael Ratner, and I were standing at LaGuardia, and we're in the terminal, and I said to him, the law made this happen.
The Haitians were free, but Judge Johnson's ruling was in jeopardy. The government continued to argue that U.S. laws should not apply at Guantanamo and threatened to appeal up to the Supreme Court, which had ruled against the Haitians in a related case, unless Coe agreed to a deal.
Getting these Haitians off of Guantanamo, it came with a price.
The ruling in our favor by the judge, the court order, said alien detainees on Guantanamo have constitutional rights. And they said, you're going to have to agree that that opinion should be taken off the books.
Coe felt he had no choice. He took the deal with the government. Judge Johnson's decision would not become legal precedent.
Given the situation they were presented with, they chose the wisest course. Because better to have no precedent and live to fight another day than to find that the court has decided against you at the highest level, which is to say, you have almost nowhere to go.
Guantanamo would remain in legal limbo, leaving the door open for it to be used as a detention center outside the reach of U.S. law.
Flown from Afghanistan to the American naval base at Guantanamo Bay in
For more on this and other Frontline programs, visit our website at pbs.org/frontline. Frontline's Out of Gitmo is available on DVD. To order, visit shoppbs.org or call 1-800-PLAY-PBS. Frontline is also available for download on iTunes.